Hello, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of the Rafa Mora podcast. So, today we're going to be talking about nationalisation and globalisation within sport, football specifically, but just talking about kind of the effects of those two things and how they're intertwined in causing, big problems and have huge significance within fans, players, media, managers, and so on, and how those things are caused by results on the pitch and solely performance based. So, starting off with nationalism, one example straight away would be the ex-Arsenal midfielder Mesut Ozil, who came under huge scrutiny in 2018 when Germany crashed out the World Cup in group stages, which was a huge failure for them. Massively underwhelmed their nation. But Ozil specifically, who has a German parent and has a Turkish parent, but from youth level already declared himself to be German, was not great at the World Cup. And like I said, Germany crashed out early. But 2 weeks later was pictured seen with the Turkish president, which made the Germans hurl massive amounts of abuse towards him. And Germans were saying, you're a disgrace to the shirt, you're not fit to wear the shirt. Sky Germany was saying how he's an embarrassment to the country, he should never put on the shirt again, which was followed by a retaliation from Ozil, but saying that think that the media's crossed the line, the fans have crossed the line, the media's trying to turn the whole nation against him, they're trying to portray him as a villain, where it's just interesting how the topic of nationalism comes into play here, because 4 years prior to that, in 2014, Ozil was a huge factor in Germany's World Cup triumph, where he played a huge role. He was a pivotal factor in that team. He led them to victory. And the German fans at the time, were lauding him with praise, saying, how proud they are of him, how well he's done at the World Cup, how they're proud to be, sharing this success with him. And then 4 years later, one bad tournament and, some politics outside of that, and suddenly, he's a disgrace to be putting on the Germany shirt and the fans, hurling huge abuse at him. And it just shows how nationalism can also link back to loyalty, where there's no loyalty in football. And, 1 minute you're a hero, the next minute you're a villain. And it's just interesting how the topic of nationalism can have such a huge effect on so many people's lives within sport. Another topic would be Andy Murray, who has been a topic of debate his entire life. And, pre-2012, you'd say Andy Murray, he hadn't been that successful yet. But the media portrayed him as, the Scotsman Andy Murray. Scotland's Andy Murray does this, Scotland Andy Murray gets to a tournament. But, as soon as it hit 2016 and Murray started to win Wimbledon's, which was his first one, suddenly the news outlets and the media were saying, Britain's Andy Murray wins Wimbledon, trying to portray him as their own and trying to convey how, his success is part of our culture and our country, which again shows how, the nationalism of sport can all the time be determined by success on the pitch or on the court, and how, 1 minute you're Scotland's Andy Murray when you're not doing well, but the next minute, you're at the Olympics, you're winning Wimbledon, and you're Britain's Andy Murray does this. Britain's Andy Murray brings it home. So it's interesting, the change and the narrative around when an athlete wins and, how the country portrays it. The biggest example of nationalism, I'd say, out of the three would be, or the problems of nationalism, would be the 2021 Euros held in England, where, England's young players throughout the tournament, they were superb. Saka specifically, at such a young age, he carried his team towards that final. But obviously in the penalty shootout, England came up short. Saka, Rashford and Sancho missed their penalties. And again, the following few months were an absolute nightmare for them. I mean, racist abuse. We had fans saying, go back to your own country, you're not English. When a week prior to that, in the semi-final, they're saying how proud they are of them, how unbelievable their performances were tonight, well in. And it's just how quickly, again, the loyalty in football, it just shows how you're never safe as a player. And fans can be fickle at times where, 123 people arrested for racism after that game. Thousands online being banned on Twitter for saying, get out of our country, you're not English, you shouldn't be playing for us. And again, showing that nationalism, while, a lot of people should be proud to play for their country and fans should be proud to be supporting that country. Whereas when it does bring in, so much joy and success in your life, can also just display and highlight the lack of understanding sometimes from, society, and how nationalism, well, you could be proud, but also, you've got to show loyalty, and 1 minute you can't be praising and then, hurling abuse at people and players or athletes or whoever they are. Just quickly on globalization, just to finish off, globalization, World Cups, they've had a huge effect on people's lives. They've been huge for the sporting industry. World Cups, the Olympics, England, Australia, that's a huge rivalry in itself. And like during those tournaments, the countries are on standstill. So globalization, while bringing countries together at the same time, also brings in the factor of, rivalries, and again can also introduce the idea of, violence, threats. After Australia, England and the Ashes, you had Australian fans being threatened after the game. You had ESPN showing that they were being targeted after the game and being hunted down by English fans. So, just globalization and nationalism together, while they can make, a conducive, flowing, sporting presence, and they can, bring so much happiness and, and a drive to win for your own country, at the same time can also be the downfall, and you've just got to be wary of that. But thank you for listening.